Counsel, good morning. Apologize for the brief delay. Drug court went a little bit longer than expected in some housekeeping matters that needed to be attended to. Attorney Cancela Mesa, would you call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Say we call Andrew Crogan.
Step right up and raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. You may be seated.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Make sure you keep your voice nice and loud for us, okay? It's a big courtroom, so sometimes it swallows up our voices. Can you state your name for the record, spelling your last name for the court reporter?
It's Andrew Crogan. It's Crogan.
And how old are you, Andrew?
I'm 35.
And what do you do for a living?
I install fire sprinkler systems.
Okay. Do you know Joseph Yurich?
Yes.
How do you know him?
I'm very good friends with him.
And how long have you been friends?
About 5 years.
Right. Were you in his wedding?
Yes.
All right. When was that?
About 4 years ago.
Okay. How did you meet him?
I met Joe through Angelina.
Okay.
One
Who's that?
His wife.
Did you know Angelina longer than 5 years?
Yes.
How long have you known her?
A few years before that.
Okay. I'm going to ask you about May 8th into May 9th of 2015. Do you remember that night?
Yes.
And do you recall where you were that evening?
At what time?
Just at the beginning of the evening, maybe 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Where were you?
About 5:30, I was getting out to the lake. I was coming from work. I put my boat into the water.
Okay. And what lake are we talking about?
Berlin Lake.
And where did you put your boat in the water?
The ramp down by the dam.
Okay. Do you have a certain place that you dock
Yes.
down there? Where's that?
It's High Oaks Campground.
I see you looking at Exhibit 4, this aerial map. Can you point out for us where this High Oaks Campground is?
Right here.
Okay. So you put your boat into the lake. Is that north of the campground?
It's right there.
All right. Leave that. Is that, what kind of campground is that?
It's a permanent site campground.
Okay, so do you bring your own camper?
You bring your own camper. It stays there year round.
I'm sorry?
It stays year round.
Okay. Do people go there in the winter, or is it mostly a summer thing?
The power's turned off. It's mostly a summer thing.
Did you have a camper there already?
Yes.
And are there multiple docks there at the campground?
Yes.
How big are the docks? Do you know?
You're allowed to keep up to a 28-foot boat there. There's about 50 docks.
Okay. And how many boats does it hold?
It might hold about 30 docks.
Okay.
Or 30 boats, I'm sorry.
What kind of boat did you put in the water that day?
I put in a Formula
And
power boat.
okay, well, how long or big?
It was 21 foot,
All right. And what color was your boat?
all black.
All black. Was anybody with you when you put your boat into the water?
I don't recall if my buddy Ben was with me at that point, or I went from the ramp to my dock and picked him up.
Okay. Did you have any plans for the evening?
No.
Did you make plans to maybe go to dinner with anybody or go out somewhere?
Not till later in the evening.
Okay, what time was that?
Well, we put the boat in the water, and I had Ben and his girlfriend at the time with me, and we ran into Joe and Angelina out there, and then we proceeded to go across the lake to our one spot and where we beached the boat and just hang out.
Okay.
And we stayed there for about an hour or two until almost dark. And then they went back to their house and I went back to my campground. After we got back to my campground, my buddy Ben was getting hungry with his girlfriend. And I don't recall if I called Joe or Joe called me to see what was going on. And I said, come on over. And then he came over, and that's when we went to Ben's restaurant.
Okay. Let me stop there for a little bit. So you put your boat in the water, and you might have had Ben and his girlfriend with you at the time, but at some point directly after you met up with them.
Very quickly after, yes.
Did they get in your boat as
Yes.
well? And then you said you saw Joe and Angelina.
Yes.
Where'd you see them at?
I saw them by the ramp where I put my boat in.
Okay, were they putting in their boat?
I think it was already in the water.
Okay. And then you guys went to a spot where you beached the boat?
Yep.
Is that located on this map somewhere?
I don't believe you have the whole lake. It's actually right. That's a railroad bridge. Go around. It's located right over here.
Okay. And did you go in separate boats to that beach?
Yes.
So Joe and Angelina went in their boat, and you and Ben and his girlfriend went in your
Yes.
boat?
Ben and his girlfriend were with me in my boat, and Joe and Angelina, and I believe they had the baby, was in their boat.
Okay. And what did you do on this beach?
Just hung out, talked. It was just a relaxing Friday night.
Did you bring any beverages with you?
I do not recall.
Okay. What about Joe and Angelina? Did they have any beverages or any
I do not-
refreshments for
I
them?
do not know.
How many hours or how long did you stay at the beach?
Maybe an hour or two.
Okay. So you go back to your camper and he goes to his house, is
Yes.
that right? Or that's your understanding anyway, right? How soon do you get back to your camper when these plans are made about Ben's or going to Ben's?
I would say we're probably within the hour.
Okay. And you said before you don't remember if he called you or you called him.
I don't recall. I know we just made plans and see what was going on and had him come over.
Do you recall, did he in fact agree that he was going to come over?
Yes.
All right. And what time was that, do you recall?
I don't recall the exact time.
Was it already dark?
I believe it was.
Okay. And what did Joe come to your camper?
Yes.
And was Ben and his girlfriend still there?
Yes.
All right. What goes on at your camper at that point?
By the time Joe got there, we pretty much got right into Ben's truck and left for Ben's restaurant.
Okay. What were you guys doing, you and Ben and Ben's girlfriend, prior to Joe getting there?
I think we were just waiting for Joe and we were just hanging out.
Okay. Were you enjoying a beer or two or anything like that?
I don't know for sure, but I'm sure I was.
Okay. Did you have beer at your camper?
Yes.
Did you have any liquor at your camper or just beer?
I think just beer.
Did Ben or his girlfriend bring beer as well? Or any other alcohol?
I don't know if they brought their own.
You said you were getting into the truck when Joe arrived?
No. Once Joe got there, we got in Ben's truck and left.
Did you go as soon as Joe arrived into
Yes.
the truck? You didn't stick around, exchange small talk? And how do you guys get to Ben's?
My buddy Ben drove his truck.
This is a different Ben's. He doesn't own Ben's.
This is not Ben's restaurant, Ben, no.
All right. So you got into Ben's truck. Who all got into Ben's truck?
It was myself, Joe, Ben, and the girl Ben was seeing at the time.
Okay. Where were you seated in Ben's truck?
I don't recall if I was in the front or back.
Okay. And do you recall where Joe was seated?
I do not.
And how do you get to Ben's from your campground?
Would you like me?
Sure.
Pulled out of the campground, come up to Bonner Road, come down to 224, cross the causeway, and come right to Ben's.
Is Ben's right on 224?
Yes.
And you said the campground's right off Bonner Road, right?
Yes.
And how long do you stay at Ben's?
At Ben's restaurant, we were there for maybe an hour, a little over an hour,
Okay.
I believe.
And did you have anything to eat while at Ben's?
I don't recall if I ate.
Okay. Did you have anything to drink at Ben's?
Yes.
What did you drink?
I had 2 beers and a shot.
And did Joe have anything to drink?
I believe he had the same.
The same? So 2 beers and a shot. Do you recall giving a statement to the police sometime after this incident?
It was, I believe, during the following week, they got a hold of me to come down to the jail to give a statement.
Okay. Do you recall what you told the police you had to drink?
I believe I also told them 2 beers and a shot.
Okay. Do you recall them telling them it was 2 to 3 beers or 1 to 2 shots?
No.
Would reviewing your video refresh your recollection of that statement?
I'm pretty certain it was 2 beers and a shot.
Okay, but would reviewing your video refresh your recollection as to what you told the police?
I guess.
Do you want permission to play the video for the witness?
Yes, just so that we can keep things in order, I will step out of the courtroom, allow this witness to review the video, and then determine whether or not his memory is refreshed.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's not very long.
Okay.
Can you see that screen all right?
Yes.
Good. All right. May 15th, 2015. Deputy One North Wayne County Sheriff's Office, sitting with
Andrew Crogan,
spell your last name,
C-R-O-G-A-N,
and date of birth.
112 pages.
And you're here to discuss
Voting rights on further planning.
this past Friday, the 8th.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me how you are not necessarily involved in the incident, but how your name came about in this investigation,
It's at my campground,
which is where
Highlands, Bond Road, Silver Lake. I was there with myself, my buddy Ben, and the girl he was seeing, and we called him Joe Yurich came over by boat. From there, we got in Ben's truck, went to Ben's restaurant, had dinner and some drinks, went through the TNT drive-thru. From there, we went back to my camper Highlands. We went down to the dock and had the music going, hanging out down there. Other people from the campground came down. And then Joe left by boat. And that's when one of my neighbors came down, said he heard an explosion, and he thinks somebody's yelling for help. So we loaded my music, and as soon as we did, you could hear somebody yelling for help. We jumped in my boat, and my buddy got his boat and went out. That's when I went around the bend looking for flames, explosion, really didn't see anything. And I what he had to do was lights. And then he was stopped, so I pulled up to him, and that's where we found that he had the guy in the back of the boat trying to lead him off the swing deck. They were yelling for help because they couldn't get him out. So that's when my buddy jumped off my boat onto the ski boat to help get him up. And that's when they went back towards Les's, and we asked the other boat if, they needed anything, they were okay, because they had the fishing boat and the other survivor. And they went back in, and that's when me and my buddy Nick, I was just with my boat back there.
Who was on your boat when you went out to the sea?
It was me, Nick Moorhead, Tom Jones, his daughter Becca, and I believe Chucky Martin was on that too. used to go and have a couple drinks.
What are we drinking?
Beer.
Just beer?
Yeah.
No liquor?
Okay,
Did anyone have liquor there?
not that I know of.
You didn't see him bring any liquor?
No.
You didn't provide any liquor?
Not there.
Okay. So you guys are having a few drinks. What time does this start?
I'm not sure exactly. It was dark.
Okay. So this is easy to say after 8 o'clock?
Most likely.
Okay. So 8:30 maybe? Okay. So how long are you guys at your campsite?
We were only there for maybe 15 minutes before we left to go to Venice.
Okay. How did you guys get to Venice?
We went to Venice, and my buddy Ben drove his truck.
So all 4 people at your party get in Ben's truck,
Yes.
and you guys drive to,
To the Ben's restaurant.
okay, Ben's restaurant. You guys go into Ben's. What happens at Ben's?
And Ben's, me and Joe just had a couple beers, and we did have, I believe, 1 or 2 shots of Fireball. And then Ben and his girlfriend were also drinking with us, but they had dinner.
Okay. How long are you guys at Ben's, you think?
I'm not sure time-wise. Maybe an hour.
Okay. So we know that a boating accident happened around midnight or so.
Yeah.
You're at your house, you leave for Ben's, it's dark, right? That's when you left.
Yeah, it was dark. We left for Ben's restaurant. Okay. Left the camp.
In Ben's truck, you guys go and you go to Ben's. Before you're there, Joe is there. You guys are drinking some beers and maybe one, maybe 2 shots. How many did Joe have?
I believe 1 or 2 right there with the
Shots.
Yeah.
How many beers do you think?
Maybe 2, 3.
Okay. Then, you guys are there for an hour, you say. You guys leave by way of Ben's truck again?
Yes.
Then where you go?
We went through the TNT drive-thru.
What did you get at TNT
I
Drive?
got Monster Energy. We mainly went through because I went to see the girl I was supporting.
Okay. Did you buy any alcohol there?
No.
No alcohol was bought at TNT Drive.
The only thing I bought was the Monster.
Okay. We're in a pickup truck and you'll see if, did Ben buy alcohol?
No, I don't believe that did he?
Did.
I really liked it.
Okay. So no alcohol.
I believe the only thing that I bought was the Monster.
Okay. So then you leave TNT for you in Ben's truck. Where do you go after that?
After we left TNT, we went back to my camper.
Okay.
And that's when we began walking down to the dock. We just hung out down by the dock with the radio going.
What's going down? What's happening down at the dock?
We were down there having some drinks, just hanging out, listening to music.
So we're drinking some more now. Down at the dock. Who's down at the dock?
And his girlfriend, myself, Joe, and then Adam was down there, Melissa, Todd.
Do you know their last names?
Yeah, Adam Falco, Melissa Manning, Todd Jones, Becca Jones, Jackie Martin. For a while, Todd's niece was down there. His wife Sherry was down there. Something else.
And Joe was there. What kind of boat does Joe have?
Joe has like about 18 foot open bow, runabout in a bay liner with a whiteboard top.
What color?
Red and white.
You may be seated. Attorney Cantala Mesa.
Your Honor, defense counsel wanted me to stop playing the video for the witness because he's gone over the area where where he's talked about the beer at Ben's, I would, since it's only an 8-minute video, instead of having to play the witness the video again in case he can't remember all other things in the video, I was going to show him the entire video. But defense counsel doesn't want me to. They would rather just show the parts that he doesn't remember on the video in order to refresh his recollection.
I believe, Your Honor, in refreshing recollection is when it says they don't remember, not when they give us an answer that is inconsistent with what the video would show or the prosecutor believes the video shows. She's played a portion of the video that addresses the questions. I don't think it's proper to then play the entire video for him because we don't know if he's going to remember or not remember other portions.
So I think if we were to have a transcript of this statement, counsel would be limited to pointing to that portion of the transcript as it relates to refreshing the witness's memory or otherwise introducing evidence that might not be consistent with his trial testimony. So at this point in time, I would say let's proceed with questioning if there are other portions of his testimony that he would need his memory refreshed or that you would otherwise look to point to as it relates to an inconsistency, then we can proceed in that fashion.
Mr. Crogan, did that refresh your recollection as to how much you said to the cops that you had to drink at Ben's restaurant?
From what I watched, it's pretty much the exact same thing I told you.
Yeah, but you said no more than 2 beers on direct, didn't you?
I said 2, and the video said possibly 3.
And you said 1 or 2 shots, didn't you?
Correct.
So do you think your memory would be fresher on May 15, 2015, or today?
Probably 2015.
Objection.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
I do not recall. I don't know.
You don't know when your memory would be fresher?
No.
You don't think it would be fresher back?
Probably back then, yes.
Okay. Do you recall also on the video when
Can we refresh?
after you refreshed your recollection, Mr. Crogan, do you recall listening to music before going to Ben's and having a few drinks before going to Ben's while Joe was there?
Objection.
No, I do not believe Joe was there. I was probably listening to music and having a few drinks, but no, Joe was not there yet.
So when Joe gets there, you leave directly from your camper to Ben's.
Correct.
You don't stay the 15 minutes that you told the police. You stay for 15 minutes.
It was an estimated 15 minutes. I'm pretty sure it was pretty instant.
Okay. What kind of shots did you and Joe have at Ben's?
I do not remember, but then we talked a week ago, and you said that it might have been Fireball.
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you recall what kind of shots you had?
I did not. I was assuming Fireball.
Okay. And did you tell the police it was Fireball?
I do not recall.
Would viewing the video refresh your recollection as to that as well?
Sure.
Let's see if there's anything else you don't remember. Well, you said you were at Ben's about an hour, is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall what time you got there to what time you left?
It was definitely dark.
Okay.
I said we stayed for an hour or so. Went through the drive-thru and then came back to my campground.
And did you say you ate at Ben's? Or?
I don't believe I ate at Ben's.
Okay. And did you see Joe eat at Ben's?
I don't believe so.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Did anyone in your foursome there have anything to eat while at Ben's?
Yes, Ben and his girlfriend, I know, ate.
Do you recall what they ate?
I do not.
All right, that's right. Now, from Ben's, where did you go?
From Ben's, we went through the drive-thru.
Okay, what drive-thru would that be?
T&T drive-thru right next to Ben's.
Okay. And who, if anyone, purchased something?
I believe I was the only one that purchased anything.
Okay, and what did you purchase?
I
there?
purchased a Monster Energy drink.
All right. And where did you go from the drive-thru?
From there, we went back to my campground.
What did you do while back at your campground?
Back at the campground, I believe that's when we went down to the docks and turned on the radio of the boat and hung out down at the docks.
Okay. And who all was hanging out there at the docks?
It was myself and Joe, Ben, the girl he was seeing. I believe Todd Jones' daughter happened to be down there. And I believe while we were down there, that's when Adam Kralka's boat pulled in and he had some people. So then it was Todd Jones, Chucky Martin, Adam's girlfriend, Melissa, maybe Todd's wife. I think it was down there then.
Okay. So where is everybody kind of congregating at? Are they on the dock or on your boat?
On the docks.
On the docks. You said there's music going on, right?
Yes.
Was there some alcohol being drank, I guess?
I was drinking some alcohol.
Okay.
Yes.
What about Joe? Did you see him with any beer?
I can't say for certain.
Do you recall talking to the police about that?
I do not.
Do you recall what he said to the police?
Impeaching on the
Overruled. She asked if she recalls telling the police. You can proceed.
Thank you. Would reviewing the video about that refresh your recollection about what you told the police about what
Yes.
Joe drank?
Yes.
How long were you guys down at the docks after getting back from Ben's before Joe left, if you recall?
Maybe about another hour, hour and a half.
Okay. And I assume you're not watching Joe the whole time, right?
No.
You're not watching any individual person?
No.
Is everyone kind of mingling with each other?
For the most part, yeah.
Does everybody know each other?
Yes.
That's what we got the impression of yesterday. Was Joe by himself or was Angelina with him?
Joe was by himself.
Do you know whether or not he came in the boat by himself to the campground?
I believe he came by himself. I was not down at the dock when he pulled in, but he came up to my campground alone.
And you said at some point Adam and Melissa pulled their boat in and they joined you guys,
Yes.
right? At some point, does Joe leave?
Yes.
And does he leave by himself?
Yes.
How does he leave? In his boat?
In his boat.
Do you recall what his boat looked like or what kind of boat he has?
Yes, it's a red and white Bayliner.
Okay. And in relation to where you were docked, or you guys are all congregating on the docks, how far was his boat docked or parked or whatever you call it?
Fairly close, I believe, within a couple of boat dock slips.
Okay. And does he say goodbye to everybody before he leaves?
I don't recall, but I'm sure he did.
Do you know where he goes or where he says he's going, anything like that?
I assumed he was going home.
Do you know what time this is?
No, I do not know the exact time.
That's all right. There's a certain point that something happens that evening, correct? Is that after Joe leaves?
Yes.
All right. What happens? Tell us.
We were still down at the docks, and the music was playing fairly loud. A neighbor came down and said, "We heard an explosion. Lower your music. We hear somebody yelling for help." at which point we lowered my music, and then we could hear somebody yelling for help.
Okay.
And that's when we decided, let's go see what's going on and go help, and jumped in the boats.
Okay. Who jumps in what boats?
I jumped in my boat. Nick Moorhead was in mine. Todd Jones, his daughter Becca, possibly Chucky Martin. I don't know if he was in mine or Adam's. Then Adam jumped in his boat with his girlfriend Melissa, and then possibly Chucky.
Okay. And how do you guys pull out of that bay there? Are you in front of Adam? Is Adam in front of you? If you recall.
I think I might have been slightly in front of Adam. We came around the bend, and I was looking for possibly flames. They said explosion, and I stopped. I didn't see anything, at which point Adam went past me, continued on a little bit farther, and he stopped. So then I pulled up to him. When I pulled up to him, that's when we realized there was a guy in the water, another boat was there.
Does anything happen on your way to that scene where the guy's in the water?
Yes, I received a phone call.
And who was that phone call from?
It was Joe.
Okay. And what did he say?
He said he believed he hit something and that it wasn't good.
Okay. That he hit something. He didn't say what it was? And that it wasn't good. Is that what he said?
Yes.
Was that the extent of that phone call?
I believe that was the extent. It was fairly quick.
Okay. How long from the time that you heard... Well, let me ask this. Did you get this phone call prior to someone coming down and saying, turn down your music?
No, we were already on the boats on the way out when my phone rang.
Okay. So you guys hear help, get on the boats, and then you get a phone call?
Yes.
Do you remember or recall who this neighbor was or who this guy was that coming down?
I believe it was Mike Bargerhoff. He's just another camper in the neighborhood. That was. I believe he was farther up in the campground.
Okay. And did anyone else from your campground get in the boat and come with you guys that you know of?
I believe just the names I mentioned.
Okay. What happens, or how do you get to this scene where the guy's in the water?
I pulled up, and I believe Adam was on the back of his boat with the gentleman. It looked like he was trying to get him up, and I believe Melissa said he needs help, couldn't get him. So I pulled closer, and I believe that's when Todd jumped off, and I know his daughter Becca jumped off also then.
As you're coming up to the scene, do you see anything? Like before you see the person in the water, what are you looking at?
No, when I got up there, I saw Adam's boat, and when I got closer, I did see another boat, and then there was, I believe, another boat there also helping.
Okay, so you're out there, when you get up there, there's 3 boats.
Yes, there was Adam's boat, there was the boat that got hit, and then there was one other boat.
Okay. The boat that got hit and the other boat besides Adam, what kind of boats were they? Could you tell?
I believe they were fishing boats.
Could you tell whether they had any lights on them or anything? Or
I did not notice. I
That's
didn't
all right.
pay attention.
That's all right. I assume on your boat you have navigation lights that you run at night,
Correct.
correct? Did Adam have his navigation lights on, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever jump in the water and try to pull the body up, anything
No,
like
I
that?
did not.
What about the guy yelling for help? Was he still there when you got there?
Yes, I believe he was possibly still in the water, but I believe he was over by the other fishing boat.
Okay. Could you hear what he was saying?
I think he was yelling for his buddy, come on, bud, come on.
Okay. How long does it take you to get from your campground over to where these boats are found?
Not very long, maybe a minute or so.
You can see State's Exhibit 4 again. Do you remember where you think you saw the body? Or even the fishing boat?
I believe when I pulled out, came through about this point, that's when I stopped, didn't see anything. And then I believe it was in this area,
Okay.
right in here.
So you think it's even further north?
I think it was further north, yes.
Okay. And that's where the body was, or the fishing boat?
Both.
Oh. And do you recall how far the body was from the fishing boat?
I believe the body Adam had on the back of his boat, and I believe the fishing boat was 20, 30 feet in front of Adam's boat.
Okay. And that's the boat that was in the crash?
Correct.
Do they, when they find the guy in the water, are you there when they actually find him in the water, or is he already found?
I believe when I got up there, they already had him to the back of Adam's boat.
Okay. Did they ever attempt to get him in any other boat, if you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And Adam's boat is equipped with something that helps you?
He has a ski boat, and it actually has a swim platform that's pretty much water height, so it's very easy to get on and off.
Do you have one of those on your boat?
Mine is a little bit higher.
Okay. You have one, but not low like Adam's?
Yes.
Okay. Do you, what do you do while there? Do you lend any assistance?
I pull up, and that's when Todd and Becca jumped off, and then I kind of stayed there, keeping my boat from hitting the other boat.
Okay.
And then pretty much they got him onto there, and that's when they started to make their way towards Les's, and that's when I went back towards my campground.
Did you have any extra lights on in order to illuminate the scene to see if there was anything in the water?
I do not have any extra lights on.
Did you also go to Les's?
I did not.
No? What, so, if Todd and Chucky are in your boat, did they continue with the body over to Les's?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And where do you go from there?
I went back to my campground.
So you didn't go to Les's or talk to any police or anything like that?
Not that evening, no.
While they're there struggling with this body to get it onto Adam's swim platform, do you start to see any emergency vehicles or anybody coming to that area?
Yes.
And where are you seeing these vehicles?
At that point, they were on the bridge.
Okay. How about anybody at Les's at that point?
You could not really see into Les's. Les's is more of a cove.
Okay. Is there something at the end of the cove at Les's that kind of points people that that's what that is, like a bait and tackle?
I don't believe there is. I think it's just known.
So you go back to your campground. What do you do?
I went back to the campground, and I think I was just there with Nick, and it was just like, we were pretty quiet.
Okay.
Pretty upset.
Yeah. Did you receive any other phone calls?
I did receive a phone call.
And what other phone calls did you receive?
It was from Angelina.
And did you ever try to contact Joe about what he had told you earlier?
I don't believe I did.
As a result of talking to Angelina, I assume you talked to her when she called, right?
I don't remember if I talked to her or if she talked to my buddy Nick. One of us did receive a phone call from her.
Okay. As a result of that phone call, what did you guys do?
We then proceeded to their house. She said she was worried about Joe.
Okay. And what did you do or how do you get to their house?
The girl that Nick was seeing at the time drove us to Angelina's house.
Okay.
When we pulled in, we met outside with Joe and Angelina, and she said that she called.
Sustained.
You just can't say what Angelina said, okay? Were you able to see Joe?
Yes.
All right. And were you able to talk to him at all?
Yes, I don't know if we really said too much. I think I gave him a hug, said I love you, buddy, and then we left.
What was his demeanor when you saw him?
Pale, scared, I guess.
Scared? Okay. You said pale. You could see that at night?
Well, I guess that's just like that ghostly look, just worried, I guess.
Do you know how long after you'd gotten back from the rescue scene that you received this phone call from Angelina?
Time-wise, I'm not exactly sure how long it was.
Okay. Do you know how long you were at the rescue scene?
I feel it was pretty quick.
Okay. Did you help tie any boats, like and tow any boats back to Les's or anything
No, I
like
did
that?
not.
Just took Todd and Chuck there.
Took John and Chucky there, yes.
Since you brought Todd and Chuck, you didn't take them back from Les's or say you were going to go pick them back up? and
No,
leave them?
Adam brought them back when they were.
When you get back to the campground after the rescue and you don't have Todd and Chuck with you anymore, are people still on the docks? People still out?
I don't know if they were on the dock. I believe we saw someone. We were walking back up to the camper.
Okay. Nobody's like, trying to look, trying to find out what happened?
I believe the one asked what's going on, and I believe we just said it wasn't good and just continued walking.
Okay. So when going back to before Joe leaves on his boat by himself, you said you didn't remember if he had any beer.
I didn't pay attention to what he was doing. No.
And do you recall telling the police that you saw something though?
I might have. I might have said that, but I don't know for sure, so I don't want to state that he was drinking because I do not know for a fact.
So you don't recall whether you told the police that or not?
I said he might have had a beer, I think.
You used the word might,
I think so.
you think? You're under permission to play that portion of the video to refresh his recollection.
Yes.
Red light. Was Joe's family there at any of these times?
No.
Okay. Just Joe by himself.
So Joe by himself. His wife was at the house with the baby.
So we go to Ben's, we go to TNT, go back to your place. You guys go down to the dock, a couple more drinks. What are we drinking down at the dock?
I have beer down.
Just beer and no alcohol, no liquor.
I think there was a bottle of vodka, but I don't know if anybody's actually drinking that.
Did you see what Joe was drinking?
No, I believe he had a beer.
Okay. So how long are you guys all down at the dock?
may be seated. Counsel.
Thank you. Mr. Crogan, did that video refresh your recollection as to what you said about him having a yearbook down in the docks?
Yes.
Okay. And did you in fact tell the police that you believe he had a beer at the
Yes.
docks? And you even said back then you weren't really watching, is that right?
Correct.
You said that before. How long from when Joe left by himself on his boat to when the neighbor came down? And
Just a few minutes.
when you got this call from Angelina, or let me ask you this way. At some point, do you know that Joe hit that boat?
Objection?
Sustained.
Do you know at some point who hit the boat, the fishing boat that you...
Objection?
Nancy, counsel.
You said, Mr. Crogan, before that when you went back to the campground, you were kind of upset.
Yes.
Okay. Why were you upset?
Because I assumed Joe was the one that hit the boat.
Objection?
Sustained.
What? So you received this call on the way to the rescue site, right?
Correct.
From Joe, is that right? And what did he say again?
I believe he said that he thought he hit something and that wasn't good.
Okay. Was Joe's boat still there when you got to that rescue site with the boat?
No.
So he was no longer there.
Correct.
Okay. Did anything lead you to believe who hit that boat?
Objection?
Rephrase.
Did you receive any information as to who hit that boat?
Objection?
Overruled.
No, I just assumed.
Objection?
Sustained.
Did you put two and two together from everything that you heard and seen that night?
That's pretty much.
Objection.
Yes.
Sustained.
Do you see Joe in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you please point to him and identify what he's wearing?
He's wearing a suit and tie.
There's two gentlemen wearing a suit and tie at the table. Could you-
He has glasses on.
May the record reflect he's identified the defendant.
Yep.
Thank you. You have 1 minute.
Yes.
I have nothing further this time. Thank you.
Attorney Martin.
1 second, Ron.
Yes.
testimony that she's provided already today. My name is Lynn Morrow, and I represent Joe. If I don't make sense or you don't understand the question I'm asking, would you please let me know?
Yes.
I need you to speak up. You keep getting softer
Sorry.
and softer, and that's okay. And in this courtroom, it's really hard to hear. So I need you to speak up as best you can. And answer verbally, because she is taking down what we're saying.
Okay.
Okay? Now, I'm going to show you a document we've marked as offense exhibit K. You indicated through the night or through that day of May 8th, there were a series of phone calls off and on with Joe. And what I'd like you to do, if you can, and it might take you a second based on this format, you can locate your cell phone number and highlight it, please. And you don't need to highlight it each time. The first time you find your cell phone number, that way we'll know who you are on that bill, on that printout.
Did you say Exhibit K?
Yes.
Thank you.
So you've highlighted your phone number on there?
Yes.
And that is, that's the phone number you had at that point in time. Is it still that same phone number today?
Yes.
Okay. And on there, do you see your number more than once?
Yes.
Okay. You don't need to highlight it each time. You can just go ahead and put that down. Now, I think you said you worked that day on May 8th. Is that correct?
Correct.
And back in 2015, where were you working?
I travel a lot for work from construction site to construction site.
So you don't
I
remember
don't
where you were back
remember the exact job site.
We're talking over 2 years ago at this point in time. And so if you don't remember something, please just let me know. Did you have a set work schedule of 8 to 4, 9 to 5?
It's
Or did it vary?
It's 7 to 3:30. The only thing that varies is the location of the drive home.
So on May 8th, you thought you got out there around 5, 5:30. If you got off work 3:30, is it possible that you were out there before 5?
It's possible.
Not certain on the time that you got out there, that was your best guess?
Yes.
Were there times when you did get out there earlier, when you got off work before 5?
Yes.
Okay. And when you got out there, you had to put your boat in, or was it at the dock?
My boat, I leave out of the water during the week, and when I get there on Friday, I put it in and I pull it back out on Sunday.
Okay. So you had to put your boat in that day.
Correct.
How long does it take you to do that?
A few minutes.
A few minutes being more or less than 5.
We'll say 5 minutes.
Okay. And you weren't certain if Ben went with you to put your boat in, or if you picked him up at your dock?
Correct.
Now, it was your recollection, I believe, as you testified,
Yes.
that you put your boat in up here by the dock. There's a ramp up here.
Right here.
Oh, it's the one that's right at the top of the board. You actually can't see it.
Yes.
And you said after you put your boat in, you saw Joe and Angelina.
Correct.
And you thought it was up at this portion of the lake.
Correct. So somewhere right where I put the boat in.
Okay. How long after you put the boat in did you see him?
Within a minute or two, I believe it's when after I put the boat in, I was pulling away from the dock, and I believe they happened to be right in that area.
Okay. And then you indicated you had gone down to this part of the lake, the south part of the lake.
Correct. Went from there, and like I said, I don't remember if I had Ben with me or if I pulled back in and picked Ben up at my dock. But then we continued on underneath the 224 bridge, underneath the railroad trestle, and around to this island right here, and that's where we pull our boats up.
And does that have a little beach area where you can sit?
Yes, normally it's not exactly white sand, but yes, it's.
Did you stop anywhere else, potentially at your dock to get Ben, but did you stop anywhere else before going back here?
No, if I would have stopped, it would have only been at my dock to pick up Ben.
And here's my question. Was Ben with you when you first saw Joe and Angelina, or were you by yourself?
I can't remember if Ben was with me then or not.
Fair enough. So it's possible that you didn't see Joe and Angelina until after you got Ben if you picked him up at the dock.
I'm pretty certain that I saw them over by the ramp.
Okay. And it was just Joe and Angelina and your baby.
Correct.
And when you go down to this other area where there's a beach, you thought, I think you said you thought it was about an hour or an hour and a half you may have been down there.
Correct.
Those are your best guesses or estimates, 2.5, over 2 years later.
Correct.
Could have been less than an hour?
Possibly.
So is it fair for me to say when you were giving these time frames, you were not certain on those time frames?
Correct.
You testified you have a Formula powerboat that I thought you said was 24 feet?
It's 21 feet.
21? That was one of those times where your voice was going.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, 21 feet. And you have music on your boat.
Correct.
Do you know at that point in the day if you were playing your music as you went down to this beach?
I'm assuming I was. Normally, if I'm on the boat, my music's on.
I was going to say, did you ever recall being out on your boat on the water and the music not playing?
Not very often.
Okay. So, when you were on this beach with Joe and Angelina, Joe told you at that point in time that he was going to go home and have dinner with Angelina, correct?
I believe so, yes.
At that point when you're on this beach, do you guys talk then about going out later to Ben's, or is that not brought up until the phone calls later in the night?
I don't recall if we happened to say, you want to do something later. I think we just were going to touch base later, see what was going on.
And at that point in time, Angelina was about 5 months pregnant.
Correct.
And they had a 10-month-old baby.
Correct.
She was not interested in going out later.
She was no.
Objection.
Basis?
Assuming facts, not in evidence, and speculation.
Sustained.
You testified that after you were at this beach, you went back to your camper.
Correct.
And Joe and Angelina and their baby left.
Correct.
You need to speak up.
Correct.
Do you leave at the same time?
I believe so.
What route do you take back?
Came back around this way underneath the railroad trestle, across the main channel underneath 224, and then back to my dock.
Joe leaves at the same time you do.
Correct.
Do you see which way he goes?
He was following me also this way, and then he turned off into his cove here.
So once you go under the railroad trusses, is that where you guys split ways and you go north and he goes south?
Yes.
And you don't see him after that?
No.
So it's fair to say you don't know where he went after you guys parted ways?
Correct.
But it was your understanding he said he was going home?
Correct.
Now, at some point in time, there's a phone call, and you're not sure if you called Joe or he called you.
Correct.
And the purpose of that call, if I understand your prior testimony, was to talk about going out to Ben's that night.
Yes.
Now, you had testified that, well, I'm not sure you did. How long after that phone call does Joe actually show up at your camp?
I believe probably within 20 minutes.
Your testimony was as soon as Joe got, you guys got in the truck, Ben's truck, go to Ben's.
Correct.
You had watched the video and you were asked some questions about the camper and people being at the camper.
Yes.
You recall that?
Yes.
And part of your testimony, or part of your statement to the police was for about 15 minutes you were at the camper. Do you ever tell the, well, let me say it this way, you never tell the police Joe was at that camper too, correct?
I don't believe so, no.
Do you recall as you sit here today, Joe ever being at the camper prior to going to Ben's?
From my memory, I believe he showed up and we got straight in the truck and left. I don't believe he was actually in my camper, hanging out my camper at all.
Is it fair to say that as you were waiting in that 15 to 20 minutes for Joe to come, you and some other people were at the camper drinking?
Correct. Yes.
If you were up at the camper, you don't see where Joe parks his boat, or docks his boat, I guess.
No,
you should say.
you can't see the water from the camper.
Okay. Is there ever any point in time where you see where Joe's boat is docked that night?
I believe later when we walked down to the docks, I noticed that it was tied to our docks.
And the prosecutor asked you, do you remember how close or far it was to your boat? Do you remember that at all? Or were you just guessing when you said you didn't want to?
I'm just guessing that it was within 1 or 2 slips.
So as you sit here today, your recollection was that Joe's boat was down at your dock.
Correct.
And you guys left to go to Ben's that night. And there were still people down at the dock listening to music and drinking at that time, or when you left, is that empty? Meaning no one else there?
I do not know after I got back to my camper after the beach, we went back up to my camper. I do not know if anybody was down at the docks. I did not go back down there until after we got back from Ben's restaurant.
Okay. And obviously, while you're gone at Ben's restaurant, you don't know what's happening down at the docks then.
Correct.
When Joe arrives, and you guys go to Ben's truck, how far is Ben's truck from your camper? Do you remember where he was parked?
Yes, about actually from me to you away from my camper.
And how far is that?
Say 10 feet.
About 10 feet away? And are you walking with Joe, or are you walking and he's bringing up the rear?
I'm walking with him.
At that point in time, do you detect any indication that Joe had been drinking that day?
No.
Do you smell any alcohol?
No.
Is he slurring his words?
No.
Are you close enough to see his eyes?
Yes.
Red glassy eyes?
No.
Trouble walking to the vehicle?
No.
So, when he first gets there to go to Ben's, you have no indication of any alcohol consumption prior to that point in time.
Correct.
Do you recall where Joe sits in his truck?
I do not.
Do you recall what kind of truck it is?
It was a black GMC.
Black GMC? And they all seem high to me as I'm trying to step up into trucks. Is this a standard type truck, or does it have bigger wheels on it?
It's a standard truck.
So to step up into it, is it more or less than a foot?
More than a foot.
And do you notice Joe, do you actually see Joe get into the truck? As you're sitting here today, can you recall?
I cannot recall that.
Fair enough. Do you see him get out of the truck at Ben's?
I don't recall him getting out. No.
When you get to Ben's and you all get out of the truck and go in, Joe have any trouble walking into Ben's?
No.
Are you detecting any indication that he's had alcohol or is impaired?
No.
No. Now, there was some testimony about what you think happened inside Ben's as far as how much was drank that night.
Yes.
Do you recall who paid for that?
I do not recall.
If there was a video inside there that night, it would show exactly how many drinks each of you had, correct?
Correct.
And that obviously would be more accurate than your recollection 2+ years later,
Correct.
or even a week later when the police are talking to you.
Correct.
If you remember, you said, I think there were about 30 boats that could be at this dock up at your campsite. There's
Yes.
spaces, slots for 30 boats.
Yes.
Do you remember how many boats were there that Friday?
I do not remember the exact.
Do you remember what types of boats were there that Friday?
Yes.
Can you describe what types of boats you remember?
In our campground docks, we have anywhere from pontoon boats to cigarette-style boats to wakeboard boats.
You described your boat Formula power boat that was black. That means nothing to me, so I can't picture what you're talking about.
It's more of a cigarette-style boat.
Okay, so it's more of a longer, narrower boat.
Yes.
Does it have a power bar or the wave bar across the top of it?
No, it does not.
Were there other boats that were in your dock area that did have a wave or tower on it?
Yes.
Can you estimate how many of them may have had that?
Probably about 3 or 4.
Just in your dock?
Just in my dock alone.
Now, as you're going out on the lake that afternoon, or late afternoon, early evening, can you see the other docks along the way as you're going?
Some, yeah.
Do you see other boats that have a wave or tower bar type construction?
Yes, there's a ton of tower boats on Berlin Lake.
And by a ton, every dock seems to have a couple of them at least.
Yes.
And there were others that night, that late afternoon, early evening on the lake that had tower bars on it.
Yes.
Some of them, I mean, do you specifically recall, as we're sitting here today, the colors of the other tower bars?
I know there's a few in mine that are red and white. There's blue. There's an all-black one. There's a ton on Berlin Lake.
In fact, didn't Adam's boat have the tower bar on it?
Yes, it did.
And his had lights on his, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you went out that late afternoon to go down to the little beach area, was Adam at your dock then?
I do not recall.
When you returned after, well, I'm not sure. You did say after you left the beach, you went right back up to your camp area.
Yes.
Was Adam's boat there then, and Adam there then?
I do not recall seeing it or seeing him at that point.
When you put your boat into the dock up by your campground and you leave to go to Ben's, other than tying it off at the dock, do you do anything to secure it, cover it?
No.
All the boats are left. How about the let me try that in English. How about Joe's boat?
It's left open.
Left open? Now, you described where your dock was, and you described where Joe and Angelina's dock was. At the bottom of that states Exhibit 4 poster. How long does it take to get from your dock down to theirs?
About 20 minutes.
I'm sorry?
About 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes. And earlier you said after you talked to Joe, it took him about 20 minutes to get to your campsite.
Correct.
Now, no doubt about it, when you spoke to the police after this accident, you told them that while at Ben's, you had had a couple drinks, and you kept telling them, might have been 1 to 2, 2 to 3 in response to questions.
Correct.
You weren't certain back then, huh?
No, I was not.
And you told them Joe had been drinking that night.
Correct.
But again, you gave them estimates and you weren't certain.
Correct.
As you leave Ben's that night, well, let me ask you this. Do you remember what the Cavs game came on the TV that night as you guys were sitting at Ben's?
I do not.
Fair enough. As you leave Ben's, you walk back out to Ben's truck with Joe and Ben's girlfriend, correct?
Yes. Yes.
At that point in time, having just had a couple of beers and shots with Joe, do you detect any indication that he's impaired, that he's had too much to drink?
No.
Does he walk out to the truck fine?
Yes.
Any slurred speech?
No.
Any red glassy eyes?
No.
Objection.
Basis?
Yeah, but she didn't lay any kind of foundation that he would even be aware of this, or have any training in this, or the fact that he's drinking, I don't know how he could even determine this.
I'm asking for his personal observations at the time.
Overruled.
So as you walk to the truck, do you recall where you sit in the truck that night?
I do not.
Do you recall where Joe is?
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Now you go back to your campsite and the dock there, correct?
Correct.
Shortly after you get back there, Adam with a boat full of people come back, correct?
Correct.
And they've got music blaring.
Correct.
And they got alcohol in their boat, they did drink.
I assume, I do not know for a fact.
Okay, you don't recall seeing that?
No.
Fair enough. When they get back to the dock, I think you testified earlier, you didn't watch Joe the whole time.
No.
So you can't say who you talked to or what you did for the whole time.
Correct.
But over the course of that hour, I think you said it may have been an hour to hour and a half, you did talk to Joe at some points in time.
Yes.
And you did see him at some points in time.
Yes.
As you sit here today, trying to see what he had testified to before. As you sit here today, you do remember that there was alcohol at the dock.
Yes.
Do you specifically recall seeing Joe with a beer?
No, I do not.
But you told the police he might have had a beer while he was there.
Yes.
Do you specifically recall seeing Joe with any alcohol?
No.
So it's fair to say, based upon you were there, other people there, and you not babysitting Joe all night, that you can't say today as you sit here how many beers Joe had at the dock.
Correct.
And even though you weren't watching Joe that night, you do talk to him before he leaves, just to say goodbye.
I believe so. I assume I did. Yes.
Okay. And again, is that an assumption, or do you recall as you're sitting here?
I do not exactly remember saying goodbye.
Okay. Do you remember seeing him on the dock going towards his boat?
I believe so.
You're all on the dock at that point in time?
Yes.
Prior to Joe going to his boat, did you observe anything from Joe that caused you to have some concern about him driving his boat home that night?
No.
Do you know, if you would have observed something to cause concern about him, do you know what you would have done?
I would have stopped them.
Objection.
Sustained.
You are aware before Joe goes that the reason he's leaving is because Angelina wants him to get home.
I assume so, yes.
And again, I'm asking if you know or you were just assuming
I'm
that.
just assuming that.
Do you recall any phone calls with Angelina that night or texts with her about Joe coming home?
I do not recall.
Fair enough. When Joe leaves, do you specifically, as you sit here today, recall watching him leave?
No.
The dock that we've been talking about that has this space for the other 30 boats or so, can you tell me, do you know how long that dock is?
It's fairly long. Maybe 200 feet.
Okay. And is it a stationary dock or is it a dock that is a floating dock that shifts as you walk?
It's a floating dock.
And do you know if Joe's boat was closer towards the end or in closer towards the campground?
I'm not really sure exactly.
Fair enough. When Joe left that night from your dock, you said you don't recall seeing him leave.
I don't really recall.
You speak up.
I don't recall him leaving now.
Can you tell us then how long after he left before your neighbor comes down and said there's been an explosion?
I believe it was 5 minutes.
And I guess I need to ask you, if you don't recall when he left or seeing him leave, what are you basing that estimate on?
I don't remember him exactly driving away. I think I remember him saying that he was going to leave, perhaps.
Okay. So you have some recollection of
It was more of a like, I'm leaving, and then I went back to talking to whoever I was talking to.
And You think it was about 5 minutes when the neighbor comes and tells you about the explosion.
Yes.
Now, you indicated it's your recollection that you and Adam both jumped on your boats, but you thought you headed out first.
Correct.
And I don't know Berlin Lake, may I approach you?
Yes.
As you come out of your dock here, and I'm going to remove this push pin so we can see the terrain a little better. As you come out of your dock here, how do you have to go out? Can you just hug the shoreline and go right around?
No, you have to go.
You have to go out straight farther and then make the bend.
And you just pointed straight farther. If you know, well, I'm assuming it's because of how the terrain is along the shore. It's too shallow.
Correct.
There are a lot of rocks and trees on the bottom of Berlin Lake, are there not?
Correct. Somewhere over there, I believe there is even a silo frame.
Somewhere over here under the water?
Yeah, somewhere on one of these points, I do not remember which point, there's an old,
Like farm silo foundation.
Okay. So you need to be careful
Yes.
to clear that type of debris in Berlin Lake.
Yes.
So when you just pointed earlier saying you have to come out, there's a black dash line down the middle of this board. Do you have to go out past that dash line?
Yes.
Okay. And that is whether you're going to go north or south.
Correct.
So as you leave, it's your recollection, you go out first, and then Adam comes behind you.
Correct.
Can you estimate, well, let me ask this. Do you know how far you went out before heading south?
I headed out past the point so I could actually see the open lake.
Okay.
And that's when I got out there and I did not notice anything that stuck out.
And when you got out past the point to see the open lake, do you turn south towards the 224 bridge?
Yes.
How fast are you going at this point in time?
About 15 miles an hour.
About 15?
Yes.
And you said you did not see anything.
No, I got out there and there was nothing that stood out that caught my attention. Like I said, we heard the neighbor say explosion, so we got out there thinking we were going to see flames or something.
Okay. Do you recall specifically looking for other boat lights?
I do not recall looking.
Fair to say you're at that point in time more focused on explosion fire type.
Correct.
things. So after you get out there and you don't see anything, why don't you just turn around and go back to your dock?
Because we definitely heard somebody yelling for help.
At that point in time when you don't see any explosions, you start looking for someone or something else besides fire and explosion.
Yes.
How long is it before Andy comes past you? I'm sorry. Before Adam comes, Andy and Adam are going to keep getting me this drive. How long before Adam comes around and takes the lead?
A few seconds, I believe.
Okay. So you don't see at that point in time, as Adam's coming around you, you don't see anything on the lake at all.
No.
And he's got the bar with the lights.
Correct.
How fast is he going?
He went past me at about 15 miles an hour too, or so I would say.
A little faster than you so he can get around you.
Yes.
And he's got his lights on at that point in time?
Yes, I believe so.
At some point in time, he stops. Do you know how long that is after you leave?
Can you repeat the question?
At some point in time, Adam comes to a stop with his boat.
Yes.
How long after he takes the lead in front of you does that happen?
A few moments.
More or less than a minute?
Probably more than a minute.
More or less than 2 minutes?
Possibly around 2 minutes.
Okay. And if you recall, when he stops, do you come up on the starboard or port side of him?
I believe I came up on the port side of him.
Okay. You had life jackets on your boat that night.
Correct.
Does something happen with the life jackets on your boat that night?
I believe I recall somebody said throw a life jacket. So I might have thrown over a life jacket to Adam's boat.
Well, did you have all your life jackets with you when you got back to the camp that night?
I do not recall.
At that point in time, when you are both there, you and Adam are there. When you first approach, there are 2 people in the water at that point in time.
Correct.
There is a boy trying to hold up Mr. Cotton. correct?
I believe somebody was in the water, yes.
Okay. Do you recall that the person who was holding up Mr. Cuppett was having trouble trying to keep him held up? Or do you, when by the time you get there, are they already trying to put this person on Adam's boat?
I believe by the time I got there, they were almost to the back of Adam's boat.
Now, you provided some testimony that after you left to go help, you received a call from Joe.
Yes.
If you know, was that before or after Adam had taken the lead?
I believe it was after Adam took the lead.
So this wasn't as soon as you got in your boat to leave.
No.
By that point in time, you were already out in the wider part of the lake, correct?
Correct.
And at that point in time, when you answered your phone, isn't it true that the first thing you said was, I can't talk, I'm out on a distress call?
I believe so.
And after you told Joe you were out on the distress call, that's when he told you he hit something Sunday.
Correct.
And because you're out on this distress call, you don't have any other conversation with him
No,
about that right then?
I believe we got right off the phone.
Now, if you recall, you provided some testimony that you had gone over to Joe and Angelina's later that night.
Correct.
Do you know how long it was after you get back to your campsite?
I do not recall the time
Did you
frame.
go over there on your, no, you testified you did not go over there on your boat.
No.
You drove over.
We drove over.
And you said Joe looked scared, and I think you said white,
Yes.
visibly upset.
Yes.
How long do you specifically talk to Joe?
I don't remember if we exchanged the words or not. We just got there and they were outside, and that's when Angelina said that she
You need to speak up.
and that's when Angelina said she has called the police, and that's when we left, and I gave Joe a hug and said, "I love you, buddy."
If you know, by that point in time, did Joe and Angelina realize that they're going to go in, another boat had been struck?
I believe they were aware another boat was struck.
How long were you there with them?
Just a few seconds, or minutes maybe.
Okay. Difference between a few seconds and minutes. Do you go in the house that night?
No.
You stay outside?
Yes.
And I think you said you hugged Joe.
Yes.
So you got close enough to him
Yes.
to give him a hug. Do you recall, as you sit here today, smelling any alcohol?
No.
When you talked to him, do you recall any slurred speech?
No.
Other than him being scared, did you observe physically anything else about him?
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
You testified earlier, well, we were just talking about when Joe called you, you were on the lake, and you told him, I can't talk, I'm out on a distress call. Your testimony was, I hit something, it's not good.
Correct.
When you came out of the cove that night, or I should call it the cove, when you came out of your camp area, and you went out onto the lake, you said you did not see any other boats out there. Do you recall generally the lighting conditions on the lake that night?
It was clear.
It was clear?
I believe so.
Dark that night?
It was definitely dark.
As you come down and you get closer to where you believe the accident was, do you recall seeing any other lights on the horizon? Specifically, let's focus on the 224 bridge, above or below that bridge.
224 bridge, I believe. I don't recall if there was already fire and ambulance on the bridge or not.
Okay. When you first pulled out of the dock and you're looking down towards the 224 bridge, do you recall then if you saw any lights?
I don't believe I saw anything then either.
You had earlier provided some testimony as to where you thought the accident happened that night. Could you again show me where that was?
Yes, I believe it was in this area over here.
And that was up above the green push pin. Do you know?
Yes.
Is this little piece of land that jettisons out called anything?
No.
Okay. But it's up above that, below your campground, but up above that.
Yes.
Do you recall as you were sitting there helping Adam and this other boat, if you could see Les's bait and tackle?
No, you can't see Les's bait. It's tucked behind trees.
So even when you're down by that boat, you can't see it because it's behind trees.
Correct.
I don't have any other questions.
Attorney Cantala Mesa.
Thank you. Do you recall how many beers you had before going to Ben's that night?
I do not.
Was it more than one?
Maybe, possibly.
Okay. It was at least one,
At
right?
least one.
And then you had beers at Ben's and a shot, one maybe two, right?
Correct.
How long does it take to get from your campground to Ben's?
Maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. And so I assume to get from Ben's back to the campground is 5 minutes, right?
Correct.
Okay. You said before that prior to going to Ben's, nobody came inside your camper. Joe didn't come inside your camper, is that right?
Correct.
Were you outside your camper drinking?
Yeah.
Okay, so you and Ben and his girlfriend, do you have like a little patio set up?
We have a little patio and outside speakers and stuff like that.
Okay, so I assume you're all sitting outside when Joe gets there.
Yes.
When you're at the docks after Ben's, I assume you're still drinking some beers there too.
Yes.
I mean, it's a party, right?
Yes.
Or I guess an impromptu party. Everybody's having a good time.
Yes, everybody just socializing, listening to
Do you
music.
recall what kind of beer everybody had? Was everybody bringing their own beer?
I think everybody pretty much brings their own.
Okay.
I know I was drinking Miller Lite.
And you said to the police that you believe Joe had a beer at the docks afterwards, right?
Yes.
So how many beers did you have at the docks afterwards?
I do not recall.
More than one again?
Possibly.
So you've had one, maybe more before Ben's, then some at Ben's along with some shots, and then one maybe more after Ben's. So you're feeling pretty good by then too, right?
Objection. 2.
Rephrase.
Did you have any plans to go out anywhere that night after partying? So you partook in this drinking alcohol
Yes.
that evening, correct? Okay. Now, you didn't keep count of how many beers you consumed yourself?
No.
Did you keep count of how many shots you had?
No.
Do you remember if you even had any more shots while you're at the docks after Ben's?
I'm pretty sure I did not have any shots after Ben's.
Okay. What about shots before you went to Ben's? Did you have any shots before that?
No.
When you said you went to Joe and Angelina's later on that night and kind of gave Joe a hug, were the police there yet?
No.
Okay. You testified with Attorney Morrow that Angelina had told you they called the police. Is that right?
Correct.
Did you assume that it just happened, that call to the police?
Objection.
Rephrase.
Did she say when they had called the police?
She did not say one.
Did she mention anything about the police coming?
Objection.
It's not offered for the truth of the statement, so overruled.
Go ahead.
I just assumed the police were coming, being that she called them.
Okay. So it was your belief that they were on their way, is that right?
Yes.
When you said you didn't really talk to Joe at that time too much.
I don't recall really exchanging anything at that time.
Okay. So, and Attorney Morrow made a big deal about you selling alcohol.
Rephrase.
Attorney Morrow asked you about you smelling alcohol on the defendant, right? You have to answer yes or no.
Yes, sorry.
But you yourself had alcohol that night, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any training in order to detect people who are under the influence?
No.
Never been to any law enforcement training, nothing like that?
No.
Have you ever bartended?
No.
Did you say that the police contacted you the next week, or you contacted them?
I believe a girl that's my secretary at work was dating a detective, and I think I was talking to her about it, and she said that he wanted me to come in, so I came in the next day.
Okay. So somehow they got in, knew who you were, got your name from somebody,
Yes.
and kind of contacted you through your secretary?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever think that night that you should go over to Les's or wait for the police at Joe's in order to tell them what you knew?
No, I assumed if they needed me, they would have came over to the campground.
Okay. When it turned dark that night, did you go back out on your boat prior to going out to Ben's or anything?
No.
At that time? So you were just out on your boat during the daylight that day.
Yes.
How long have you had your boat?
I've owned a boat since I was 21 years old.
And how old are you again?
35.
All right. How long have you been going out to Berlin Lake on a boat?
I bought my first jet ski when I was 18, so ever since I was 18, I was on boat.
Do you have to have a boater's license for a jet ski?
If you were born before, I believe it was 82.
Okay. And do you have to have a boater's license for your boat?
If you're under, born in 82, I believe, or
Okay.
younger than.
Are there any rules on that lake about speed limits?
There are no speed limits on Berlin Lake.
And what about at night? Are there any speed limits at night?
Yes,
And what is that?
10 to 15 miles an hour.
Have you seen that sign, those signs posted at that lake?
Yes,
And you said before that you didn't see Joe leaving the cove, the campground where you're at, right?
no, I did not pay attention to it once he was leaving. Though.
Okay. Right around the docks where your campground is that considered a no-wake zone?
In our cove, yes.
And what does that mean?
It's idle speed.
Okay. You don't want to pick up too much water? that kind of
Correct.
thing?
It's pretty much as slow as you can go and still maintain control of the boat.
You talked about some objects being in the water when you turn the one corner, and so everybody kind of goes out to the middle.
Yes.
Right? Is everybody who's familiar with that lake kind of know what's going on, or is there posted signs? Anything like that?
I believe there's posted signs at the ramps and stuff. Berlin Lake has a lot of shallows and a lot of dangerous areas that are actually out in the middle of the lake where you think the deepest is probably the shallowest.
And that time of year, is the lake more full, more down, or if you recall what was going on with the lake at that time?
I don't recall. The water level out there is constantly up and down.
But as a boater, you're aware to be kind of aware.
I'm aware,
of
even when the hot water's high, I stay away from where sandbars and obstacles that I know are under there are. Even if there is enough water, I just stay away from those areas.
Do you recall that night, Attorney Morrow asked you a little bit about lighting. Do you recall seeing any fishermen as you're going out to find or look for this call for help?
I do not recall seeing anything.
Do you recall seeing anyone on the shoreline at all during this rescue attempt?
I do not.
Yes.
I have nothing further to
Recross.
Thank you. Do you know who drove over to Joe and Angelina's after the rescue?
Yes, you met with myself. It was myself, Nick Moorhead, and a girl that he was seeing at the time.
Now, a couple times when you were just being asked questions about how much you drank that night, before you went to Ben's, you said one, possibly, you had one, it's possible you had more.
Correct.
It's possible you didn't have more.
Correct.
And then you were asked how many after you went back out to the dock, you got back to Ben's, and you said it's possible you had more than one.
Correct.
It's possible you only had one.
Correct.
You had testified that there are some sandbars. You've been out on that lake since you were 18.
Yes.
If you could show me from your dock how you would travel in the lake to go to Joe's dock, taking into consideration the sandbars and the things you're aware of.
I would leave from my dock here, come out more into the channel, come underneath the bridge, come closer to the state park ramp here, because there's a main sandbar right down through here. Come around this side, and then come down in through here.
Now, you said after you leave your dock, you go out to the middle and come down to the channel.
Yes.
The channel is the pathway of the water that goes underneath the bridge, correct?
Correct.
Are there, that you're aware of any regulations with regard to activity in the channel? As
Nothing.
far as anchoring your boat or stopping?
Nothing I'm aware of.
And then you said when you go under the 224 bridge, you go more over towards the state park, and we can see the white ramps or the white docks that are there. Why do you go more over towards the state park?
Because there's a sandbar out in the middle of that main section of the lake.
I'm sorry.
There's a sandbar out in the middle of the main section of the lake.
So you have to get around that to go down to the cove where Joe and Angelina's cabin is.
Yes.
You said there's no speed limit on Merlin Lake. At night you thought it was 10 to 15 miles an hour.
Yes, during the day there's no speed limit. At night it's 10 to 15.
Have you ever, since you were 18 years old, ever seen any enforcement of the speed limit at nighttime on Merlin Lake?
Personally, no.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Nothing, thank you.
I think I have two questions. If you recall, did you have anything to eat at any point after getting to your campground?
I do not recall.
Okay. You said that it takes about 20 minutes to get from your dock to Joe's.
Correct.
That's on a boat.
Correct.
All right. Is that running? How fast would your boat go
That would
to
be
get from one to the other?
That'd be about cruising about 35 miles an hour. Once you get out of the no wake of mine, slow down again at the bridge, come across, and then
This whole area right here is all no wake, so that you have to idle down through right there.
Okay. Any idea how long it would take if you're running at night?
at night, probably even longer.
Okay. Thank you. Counsel, any follow-up as to those questions?
Mayor.
Just to clarify, you said that was 20 minutes observing all the no-wake zones.
Yes.
You may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I see counsel?